and welcome back to Morgan's Love Lab, where we make love last. I want to thank you for joining today. We had a really good talk last week about what counseling is, but here at the Love Lab, we like to focus on couples counseling. So I thought today that we could open up the floor to some of our listeners to ask some questions about what counseling is, what couples counseling is. So pick up your phones and dial the number below so we can talk. Can't wait to hear from you guys. All right, it looks like we have our first caller, guys. All right, caller, if you could please tell us your name, where you're calling from, and what are you calling about?
Hi, my name is Courtney. I am calling from Elizabeth City, North Carolina. Woo-hoo. And I was calling because me and my husband have been going through a tough patch.
Mhm.
And feels like literally everything he does drives me crazy. I mean, leaving the toilet seat open or up and constantly just having an argument about little things. Anyway, my friend put me on to you and he told me that you'd be a great source. So I just kind of want to know more about what couples counseling is.
Well, thank you, Courtney from Elizabeth City, for calling and asking that question. And you'll have to thank your friend for me as well. Couples counseling what is couples counseling first? That's a great question. Couples counseling is a form of counseling used by couples who better want to understand the dynamics of their relationship. Couples counseling can be a place where couples come to navigate common relationship issues or challenges, as well as improve communication or intimacy within their relationship. Um, Couples counseling isn't strictly for couples who are having issues or challenges in their relationships. Couples counseling can also be utilized for couples who just want to get a better understanding of each other without or with the addition of a third party, kind of like a mediator or a neutral party. Couples counseling will look different for every couple because all relationships are different and they hold different values. Does that better answer your question, Courtney?
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for calling. All right, that was a great question to get us started. Thank you, Courtney, for getting us started with that. We do have another caller on the line. All right, caller, you're on the air. Could you tell us your name, where you're calling from, and what you're calling about?
Hey, I'm Trey, I'm calling from the DMV area. I'm calling about couples counseling, and I wanted to know, is couples counseling for people who are being divorced or have really serious mental health issues, like crazy people? I'm not concerned about domestic violence or cheating, so I don't know if couples counseling can help us.
That's a really, really good point, Trey. And thank you for calling. Shout out to the DMV. There are many myths about what couples counseling is or why people come to it or if you qualify for couples counseling. And so what couples counseling can look like will be very different for every relationship or couple. And some of those myths about couples counseling were some that you kind of mentioned about you can only come to couples counseling if you're married. That is a myth. I can let all of our listeners know. Couples counseling are for couples who are dating, cohabitating. There's so many different types of relationships. That are considered couples or considered two people loving each other or in love. And that can all be addressed in couples counseling. The key to any type of mental health treatment is buy-in. And what that means is basically like a universal acceptance or agreement from the clients or stakeholders, which would be you and your partner for a particular decision or couples counseling. So couples counseling can work for many different variations, but I also do want to note that you did mention about like domestic violence and cheating, and within couples counseling, research shows that for couples counseling to work, those two things could not be present. So domestic violence and cheating, those aren't really conducive to building a relationship or repairing a relationship. And so within couples counseling, each counselor is different. So what they might allow could be different. But for me and for what like I know that domestic violence and cheating can be very harmful to the experience had at couples counseling. Does that better answer your question?
It does. Thank you so much for taking my call. I'm definitely going to look into the options that you mentioned and keep these options in mind.
Thank you so much for calling. I appreciate it. It looks like we have another caller on the line. All right, caller, you're on the air. Could you tell us your name, where you're calling from, and what you're calling about?
Hello, my name is Ashley. I'm calling from San Francisco, California. And my question is, what makes, couples therapy or family therapy different from me just ranting about my husband to Mary Beth down that food line? I don't understand, honestly, what's the difference between the two.
Thank you, Ashley. And that is a really good question. Couples counseling is different from individual counseling or family counseling because in couples counseling, the relationship is the client. And what that means is that each individual partner that makes up the relationship isn't the focus. It's the focus. The focus of couples counseling is the intersection of those two partners. And so what you could experience in couples counseling would be very different than what you would experience in individual because, well, for one, there's one person there. In couples, there can be two, there can be three, because what defines a couple is up to that couple. So there could be polygamous relationships in couple counseling. It's not only for monogamous relationships. And what couples counseling could look like could be very different for each couple. And so some examples of that could be couples coming in and doing enactments. So like reenacting arguments to better understand where the communication broke down, or doing values worksheets in session to better understand the individual values as well as the relationship values. And those are just a few out of a ton of different things that you can do within couples counseling. Does that better answer your question, Ashley?
Yeah, that actually makes a lot more sense. Thank you for breaking it down for me.
No problem. And thank you so much for calling. We have another caller calling in. All right, caller, you're on the air. Could you tell us your name, where you're calling from, and what you're calling about?
Hey, my name is Sonny. I'm from Raleigh. And where would I find couples counseling?
Hello, Sunny. All right, that is a great question. And you can find couples counseling in so many different places, so many different shapes and forms. Couples counseling is a very accessible, well, let me not use the word very. Couples counseling is accessible through many different outlets. So you can find couples counselors in private practice. You can find couples counseling at some state facilities, or counselors who have specializations in couples counseling. You can find couples counselors online. They have tried to increase the accessibility, so they have virtual couples counseling, in-person couples counseling. It really just depends on your location and the availability in your area. And I know that doesn't really answer the question, but it just is very dependent on your location. Does that better answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling.
Bye.
All right. Thank you, Sunny, for that great question again. It looks like we have another caller on the line. All right, caller, you're on the air. Could you tell us your name, where you're calling from, and what you're calling about?
Yes, my name is Pete. I'm calling from Atlanta. My question would be, what can I talk to you about in couples counseling?
All right, Penny, that is a really good question. Couples counseling is for the couple. So we can talk about whatever you want to talk about as a couple. So some of the things that come up in couples counseling could be anywhere from communication. We talk about intimacy. We could talk about values that you hold as a couple. People even talk about sex in couples counseling. Couples counseling is for the couple. So what we talk about is very dependent on the couple as a whole. I know that's not very specific, but does that better answer your question, Penny?
Yes, it does, and thank you so much.
Thank you for calling. You have a great day. All right, you guys. I think Penny was going to be our last question for today. I do want to do a kind of wrap up with you guys. So we covered a lot today about what couples counseling is, why couples counseling is different from individual or family counseling. We talked about some of the myths or common stigma that couples counseling can carry. And then we also talked about what can you talk about in couples counseling. And I just wanted to go ahead and say again, thank you everyone for calling in and sharing those questions with me. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait until we're back for next week. So I want to say goodbye. We're going to be closing the lab for today. But we will see you again in a few weeks. Thanks.